Please be seated. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Sanjeev Pillai. Along with my wife, Sarita, and our daughters, Maya and Arya, I have been coming to St. Paul's for over 5 years. This is my third year in the vestry. When the sign-up sheet for today's service never made it around the table to me at the last vestry meeting, I knew something was up. I was signed up to give the sermon, and as nervous as I am standing up here, I want to thank the rest of the vestry for giving me this opportunity. Many of us in this congregation have come to the Episcopal Church from other denominations. Many were raised Catholic or in other Protestant denominations. My story is similar, but also different at the same time. Today, I would like to share my personal faith journey with you. I was born in Kerala, India, and raised Hindu, the predominant religion of India. Hinduism is an ancient polytheistic religion with a central trinity and also gods for different elements of nature like sun, wind, fire, water, etc. Surrounded by an Orthodox Hindu family, I grew up a devout Hindu. But as a teenager, I became increasingly uncomfortable at some of the traditions, one of which being the caste system that divided people into so-called upper castes, lower castes, and in some parts of the country, the lowest of them all, the untouchables. I noticed how many members of my family frequently invoked our upper caste status, especially when it came to marriage and social circles. I was told in subtle ways who I could be friends with and whom I should not associate with. The nature of worship in general was mostly in service of yourself or your family, not for the community around you or for helping those in need. All of this was disconcerting to me. But ultimately, what really turned me against religion was something that had little to do with religious traditions. It was the passing of my mother in my early 20s, having already lost my father to cancer when I was only 10. Having lost both parents at a young age, I began to question the validity of faith in my life, and that is when the discomfort that I had been feeling all along turned into a torrent that buried any sense of faith or belief in a higher power. I started to believe that there is no rhyme or reason for things that happen in your life, and that it is a waste of time to follow a belief system for hope or comfort. For the next decade or so, I became increasingly agnostic, unable to find any reasonable explanation for the existence of faith. Coming to the United States for graduate studies strengthened my agnosticism as I was far away from the judgment of my family. Studying molecular biology and genetic engineering made me feel that science alone was the truth, and what cannot be proven scientifically was not worth following. And then Sarita happened. We met online when I was working in the San Francisco Bay Area. I noticed on her profile that it said she was Christian. I made it clear to Sarita that I do not follow religion or God, and she assured me that was fine with her as long as I did not expect her to renounce her faith. I soon found out that she is a person of very strong faith who seldom talks about it. We got married a year after we met, and I moved to the Boston area. Having a partner in life after all these years of being by myself started to change things for me. In general, life seemed to have a bit more purpose than just work and fun. We still didn't talk about faith. She would go to church regularly on Sundays while I slept in or watched TV. I noticed that she had more structure and discipline to her life because of her faith. She never really cared for my frequent ridiculing of religion and didn't reward my unsolicited opinions with discussions. This was quite different from my previous experiences when people of faith would get upset and defensive at some of my remarks. She seemed quite secure in her faith. Though I had specifically asked her not to try to coerce me into following faith, I started secretly wishing she would try. But I realized later that she was patiently waiting for me to take my own personal faith journey. Then came along Maya, my older daughter. Her birth brought a renewed sense of purpose to my life. For a few years, it was all about Maya. Sarita's work involves a lot of travel, so from the time Maya was around 6 months old, I was taking care of her all by myself when Sarita traveled. I still remember the first time when it was just us. I could barely sleep at night, and I kept checking to see if she is breathing. Yet, as she grew older, there was one aspect of her life that I was not part of, when Sarita took her to church. It was around that time that I read some articles that pointed out to me that humans are not supposed to be completely rational or logical beings. In fact, if we were purely rational, we would not have evolved into who we are today. Many people ridicule faith because it is based on something that is not provable, but the same is true of many other constructs of large-scale human cooperation. For example, most legal systems are based on a belief in human rights. In reality, humans have no rights, just as chimps or wolves have no rights. The only place where human rights exist is in our minds, from the stories we invent and tell one another that have evolved over time. Similarly, nation-states are fictitious. Nature does not delineate the United States and Canada as two nations. They are the same physical landmass. Whereas all other animals live in an objective world of rivers, trees, and lions, we humans have constructed for us a second layer of reality, comprised of entities such as the European Union, the dollar, human rights, and the rule of law. This ability to imagine and then build structures around those imaginations, be it religions, cultures, nations, or laws, sets humans apart from other species. And that is perhaps one of the reasons why we live differently today from 100,000 years ago, whereas most other species don't. I was slowly laying the framework to fill in what I felt was missing from my life. The desire for faith grew even stronger when my second daughter, Arya, was born, bringing with her a personality a little different from the rest of us, refreshingly different. Even though we did many things together as a family, what we didn't do together stuck out sorely for me. I struggled to explain to my children what is good and what isn't, without the context of how we decide what is good and what isn't. By the time we moved to Bedford in March of 2013, I decided that faith needed to be a part of my life. Christianity was an easy choice for many reasons. It offered me a fresh perspective that addressed many of my concerns that I had from my previous experiences with faith. It was based on helping those in need, love for everyone, and salvation for anyone who believes, regardless of where they come from. Most importantly, though, the rest of my family were already following it. I then found out that the Episcopal Church is in full communion with the Martoma Church of South India, to which Sarita's mother belonged. The church's role in the civil rights movement and gender and sexual orientation equality were impressive. Choosing St. Paul's was also easy after Chris visited us at home. When he said, "We believe God brought you to us for a reason, and we will welcome you regardless of what your beliefs are," which I did not expect to hear from a priest, I was convinced that I should give it a try. In the past 5 years, my faith has grown. Elements of agnosticism are still there and will perhaps always be. But my agnosticism and faith, as paradoxical as it may sound, have learned to coexist. I have come to accept that I will not have all the answers I'm seeking, and I do not need to, for accepting faith as part of my life. My rational side now complements my faith in some ways by encouraging me to understand Christianity better by a step-by-step process, what we call algorithmic in the computational sciences. You have to know as much as possible about what you follow, it tells me. I'm studying Christianity from a historical perspective and understanding the Bible better now. I know there are 39 books of the Old Testament and 27 of the New. I know why the Apocrypha exists in the Bible of some traditions and not in others. But what I value above all is that I can pray and meditate at any point of time during the day and see a comforting image of Jesus Christ in my mind. That wasn't there 5 years ago. I would like to wrap up by relating Jesus' resistance to the devil's temptation in today's gospel reading and the theme of sacrifice in the season of Lent to some recent real-life events. Last year, the region of India I was born in was hit with catastrophic floods, the worst in a century. We're talking 14 to 15 feet of standing water. Fortunately, human casualties were disproportionately low, and one group of rescue workers contributed more than all others combined. They were the poor fishermen who earned their living fishing in the turbulent waters of the Arabian Sea, who do not have a steady source of food or income, are mostly un- or undereducated, yet very generous, and overwhelmingly Christian. They stopped their fishing activities for several days, at times at the cost of putting food on the tables for their families, to take their boats into the flooded inland areas to rescue those stranded in their homes or on their rooftops. As if that sacrifice wasn't enough, many of those stranded who were upper caste Hindus refused to take their help simply because they were not Hindu and they were fishermen, a profession that is generally looked down upon. But as the water levels kept rising, the fishermen kept coming back to these houses again and again and again, despite being turned away. As the situation turned dire, some of those stranded said that they would get in the boats if they did not have to touch these fishermen. That really happened. These angels gladly complied and provided those stranded with ways to get in the boats without touching them. Thousands of lives were saved that way. These people of God resisted every temptation of the devil working through those who discriminate against them to eventually save their lives. I can only hope that those who rescued learned something from their experiences. My heart fills with pride when I think of these fishermen. I aspire to be like them one day. And that, my brothers and sisters, is why I'm a Christian. Amen.